Welcome back, everybody. Today we're getting into this pistol right here. This is the Sig Sauer P365, and this gun in 2018 has been the subject of lots of video praise, lots of video criticism here on YouTube, lots of gun writer praise, lots of blogger criticism. So we're going to kind of try to touch on all of that. So when these first came out, there was a ton of guys that were in line to get them. I was not one of them, and honestly, truth be told, the reason that is because Sig has kind of had a bad reputation in the last couple of years with putting guns out that had issues and sort of beta testing them on their buyers. That's one man's opinion anyway. And unfortunately, this gun kind of followed that trend. So they came out, a lot of the first generation guns, if you will, which we'll get into that here in just a second, had some issues. Strikers breaking, trigger return springs breaking, several other things just having issues over and over again, failures to fire, a lot of striker drag on the actual pistol primers. I did a pre-video on this over on my B channel, and you guys can check that out. I did have some striker drag, but not a ton more than like a Glock 43 or something like that. All small guns are going to have some extent of it. The early Sig P365s had horrific amounts of it. So again, this one here, if I didn't mention it already, was born, or made rather, according to the frame, in May of 2018. So that has the Gen 2 changes to it. The box that this one came in said June 2018 on it, and I picked it up, I think, June 14th. So I picked it up from Top Gun Supply, so thank you to them for sending the pistol out for this review. They did send it out, so thanks to them. If you guys are looking for one, we'll drop a link down below in the video description where we can. But again, so this one came in basically as soon as they hit the store shelves, I got it. And that was like whatever, mid-June. So I've been shooting it since, have a total of 1,100 rounds through it to date, just over. And typically, I generally speaking don't put that many rounds through pistols when doing reviews. I tend to kind of go around the 500 to 800 round mark. One reason I put more through it than that with this one was simply because Tim over at the Military Arms channel had two of them break. I think both of them were post 900 rounds. So I wanted to make sure we at least push through that to see if any of the Gen 2 changes, which we'll get into certainly here in the video, have sort of helped that. And I'm going to tell you guys, we had zero issues with this pistol at all to date. I've had no failures of any kind, no failures to lock back. It's fed everything, it's ate everything, hollow point, whatever it may be, full metal jacket. The majority of the ammo that we put through it was 125 grain Minuteman munitions, remanufactured stuff. Again, no issues of any kind to report to you guys at all, period. It functioned flawlessly, so that is a good thing. However, my experience has not been the same for a lot of you guys out there, and I know that. So we're going to walk you through some of the issues that the pistol has had, at least reportedly, some things Sig has done to address those, and then basically at the end of it, we'll kind of let you know what we think of it overall. Getting into the details of the pistol, we'll start out here at the base plate and sort of work our way up. It does come with two 10-round magazines, and the magazines really are the magic of this gun in many ways. The pistol itself was designed around the magazines. The magazine was designed first, then the pistol was designed around it. This one here is the base plate that has the little extension on there, so you can get kind of a full grip. It does come with a flat one as well. It also has a very well thought out little cutout here, so that way should you get a double feed, you can strip and rip the mags with ease, so that is good. But taking a look there at this magazine, you guys can see it's super small for actually holding 10 rounds, and it has this very unique taper, and it must have very thin walls on there. It simply has to, just to be able to hold that many rounds. I'm going to show you guys a factory Glock 43 mag, and we'll get into the Glock 43 comparison here in good detail in just a minute, but you guys can see how they sort of stack up size-wise, and that there is a significant difference there in the Sig, but we'll show you here a little bit later on that the Glock 43 actually in terms of size is very, very comparable to the Sig P365 here. But these mags, again, you get 2 of them from the factory, 2 10-rounders, and there are additional 12-rounders available aftermarket. I did order some up from the folks over at Gun Mag Warehouse. They sent them out, so we got some of those in, and that helped us put the rounds through this pistol in the amount of time that we did. So definitely appreciate their help. We'll drop a link to those mags where we can down below in the video description. Continuing up the grip, you guys can see that we do have texturing there, basically all the way around up until the undercut here on the trigger guard. It gives you good purchase on the gun, whether your hands be sweaty, bloody, whatever the case may be. Pretty much every time I shot this gun, with the exception of indoor shooting, it was over 100 degrees outside, and I didn't have any problems with it moving around at all. So I think it did a good job. In fact, I would probably like it to be a little bit more aggressive, but I know some folks for concealed carry like it not to be so aggressive against their skin. I guess personal preference there at that point, but it feels very ergonomic. It lets you get a very good high purchase there with this beaver tail. The trigger probably could be a little bit more undercut than it is, but I never really noticed it being a problem. It shoots very well in terms of recoil impulse for a gun of this size and weight, so it points naturally as well, which certainly is a good thing. Continuing forward on the gun, we do have our slide lock and our disassembly lever here. Slide lock is sort of minimalist. It is not ambidextrous, so for those of you guys who are left-handed, you just kind of have to work with it. Many of you guys are probably already used to that. We do have some wear there, holster wear that you guys can see, but it's held up well. We don't have any issues with it. Our takedown lever is right here. We'll show you that here in a minute when we break the pistol down, and then moving forward, you guys can see these little cutouts there on the dust cover of the pistol. As of right now, when I'm making this video, I am not aware of any laser or light combinations that are available for this. However, Sig does have their own little electro-optics division, and I'm sure they're working on something right there that will interface with that. I'm sure the other companies out there are working on that as well. I'm sure it's coming. It just hasn't been out yet, at least not to my knowledge. But working on the trigger here, one thing I want to make note of is that we did have some rust issues on this pistol almost immediately, probably within 2 weeks, and really it hadn't seen anything besides range use and then in a dehumidified safe. So really that was kind of odd. However, we put some CLP on there, have been scrubbing it pretty much every time after going to the range, and it doesn't seem to be a reoccurring issue. There's a little bit of pitting on there left from it, but just pointing that out as something that did happen along the way. Moving on to the slide, it does have Sig's Nitron finish on there, which is their version of nitrocarburization. It's going to give you good surface hardness, good corrosion resistance, all of those types of things. And it is a metal treatment, not a finish per se. So it's the treatment is kind of impregnated into the steel there. So it's going to last even if it starts to show wear. It still has that treatment component and wear features to it. So we do have the serrations there up front. For those of you guys that are into that, good serrations there on the back. Both of them are very functional. You can use them either way if you want to grab the rear, or if you guys want to do press checks or whatever. It does give you good purchase on there. Can't be mad about that. We do have a little loaded chamber indicator there, window. Nothing's going to stick up or anything like that, but you would be able to see it if we actually put a piece of brass down in there. And taking a look there at the top of the slide, some folks have said that the earlier ones had a different bevel up there towards the front sight than this one does. Like, I've seen photos, I'm not entirely sure on that, but since the rolling updates, I believe in May, these do come with the True Glow night sights on there. They're very good sights, they're all steel. They do have a good ledge here on the rear should you have to do one-handed manipulations. And we have some serrations on the back there as well, which are going to cut down on possible glare. And then up front we have the tritium night sight with a bright green outline there, sort of drawing your eye into it. Very good sights, cannot be mad about them at all. Disassembly of the pistol is pretty straightforward. However, some folks out there have reported some issues with it, so we'll kind of touch on those here as we go along. We're going to hit our magazine release, which is here on the left side of the pistol. Of course, it's going to release our magazine. Should note that magazine release is ambidextrous, or rather reversible, not ambidextrous. So if you want to swap it out, you can, and you'll see that the magazines do have cuts for either way. At this point, we're going to press up here on our slide lock and lock the slide to the rear. At this point, we're going to take our takedown lever, which is this lever here, rotate it down 90 degrees. Some folks, it's going to want to push back on you because there is a spring there. If that's the case, just push forward there with your thumb, and you should be good to go. When you pull the slide to the rear, release it. Some folks have reported that they had to pull the trigger on their pistol for disassembly. If that's the case, call Sig, because that should not be the case. You should be able to push the slide forward there without pulling the trigger. At this point, we're going to take our spring out and guide rod. You guys can see there it does have a steel guide rod, and pull our barrel out, and we've disassembled the pistol. I wasn't going to get into it at this point of the video, but I suppose with the pistol apart, we really should kind of get into some of the rolling changes that Sig has done that I alluded to earlier in the video. So one of them is going to be that the trigger return spring has been lengthened. So I know that's one of the problems that people have reported, that the trigger return spring was breaking on some of the earlier models. That has been lengthened. And a lot of this data that you guys are going to see here and the photos come from folks over on sigtalk.com. So I've taken them from that forum, and I appreciate those being up there for public knowledge and public consumption. So thanks to them for that. The striker spring itself has been changed as well, so it's been lengthened. So you guys can kind of see that there. The firing control pin has been changed, which is back here. It's a different shape than it used to be. They kind of have it beveled out there on the edges now versus what it was originally. So that is how it comes now with those sort of bevels versus the straight way as it came in originally. The sear block changes are ones you can see here on this pistol. You guys can see from the photos as well, but this one has the smoothed out, shiny finish. It's a little bit different shape than some of the earlier ones. So again, this is a May produced pistol. I picked it up in June. The box actually says June on it, so it's kind of confusing, but the frame here does say May, just for those wondering. So it's sort of I guess a mixed master in that regard. Additionally, the striker here, where the cutout is on the frame, mine does not have it. However, some of them have a little additional cutout that has been made to the striker itself, and the striker assembly, of course, has been changed according to several folks in terms of materials and heat treating. I don't doubt that at all, given the prevalence rather of the early strikers that did break off. So those are some of the things that have changed along the way, but all in all, if you look at the machining and stuff like that on the inside that we would typically look at with a pistol when we have it disassembled, it looks very good. There's good machining on there. The barrel here is good looking overall, has a nice wide feed ramp on there. We've had no issues with feeding of hull points of any kind. One thing I will note though is that it has the nitron finish as the slide does, which is good for corrosion resistance and wear. It has almost no wear showing there on the barrel. We have a good bit showing there on the hood, just in the slide there. And then also on the locking block right there, I'm not sure if the camera really picks it up, but it has kind of an abnormal amount of wear on there for this round count, in my opinion. We'll watch it and kind of see how it goes, but it's interesting to note the wear marks versus what you would typically see on a pistol at this round count. So to put it back together, we're just going to lock that recoil spring assembly into the barrel. And taking a look back in here, again, we have these very long steel rails that the slide rides on. That's good. It's good for accuracy. It's good for durability of the pistol overall, and it makes it somewhat modular, although Sig does not advertise it like that. To put the slide back on, you guys can see this disassembly lever rather rotated back, which is kind of good that it happened on camera because sometimes it doesn't do that. To get it back down, which some owners have had a problem with, you're just going to push up here on the slide lock and rotate it down. And you can see it wants to back out. But again, if that happens, just push up here on your slide lock, and you should be able to ride the pistol on the slide and kind of lock it back here. Hopefully, I can do it. What do we got going on? Honestly, guys, this is the first time I've had that problem. It's sticking up there. I'm not sure why it was doing that. And then as soon as I pushed it down with my finger, that was very interesting. Hopefully I captured that in somewhat of focus there on camera, but a little piece here was sticking up as if I had the trigger pulled back when I didn't. That's interesting. Anyway, as soon as we pushed it down, it went back, and our disassembly lever rotated back into place. At that point, your reassembly is done. That's interesting that happened on camera. You guys saw it as it happened. But anyway, I haven't had any issues before that at all with disassembly, takedown, or anything like that. So interesting. The shot that you guys see on your screen right here really was the big news when this pistol was announced. So again, the 365 is essentially the same size as a Glock 43, which is crazy because this one here with their factory mag base plate there is going to give you 6+1, so a total of 7 rounds of 9mm. Of course, here with the Sig, we're going to get 11 from the factory. Again, we kind of have an unfair comparison here because I do have the extension base plate on there, but with the flat one, you can kind of imagine, and we'll probably roll in pictures of it there so you guys can get a good comparison. We will line the backs of the slides up there so you guys can see sort of how they stack up size-wise. It has a little bit more beaver tail here on the 43, as you guys can see, kind of a sloped edge there on the P365, and you guys will see the Glock 43 is a little bit longer for sure in that regard. Basically down here where the base of the actual grip is, the Sig is just a touch shorter, but that's sort of due to the magazine design, not so much due to the actual length of the grip itself. Again, taking a look there at the slide, you guys can see almost identical, which is really just crazy in that regard. And again, in thickness there, in terms of the grip, almost identical there as well. With the size of this pistol, I think a lot of folks are probably going to want to pocket carry it, but also a lot of folks are going to want to inside the waistband carry it. I kind of see it as in between, as I did with the Glock 43. Really, you could do either, just depending on how you dress and what your preferences are. I've been carrying this one inside the waistband here when doing so, simply because that's kind of how I see it fitting into my carry program. But this holster here is from Concealment Express. You guys can see it's nice and thin, which I do like. It's just a single clip, very simple design overall. It's got some force on there though to make sure you don't draw your holster out when you draw. I've never had that issue, and it does lock into place nice and snug here, which I'll try to kind of capture. There you go. So good retention there. It's not going to slip out on you, and it'll pop out when you need it to. We already went over reliability. Again, we've had zero issues, so I can't complain about that. The pistol's done as well as it possibly could have in that regard. Accuracy, practical accuracy, I didn't bench this one, but practical accuracy was very good. You know, shooting it side by side with a Glock 43, it was every bit as accurate, if not more so. In terms of recoil impulse, compared to, again, we're just going to use a Glock 43 for example, I felt that this one was probably just as snappy as a Glock 43. I've read other folks say that it's a little bit smoother shooting. That has not been my experience. Just kind of to add to that, again, for some folks who haven't shot the Glock 43 but may have shot like a Shield 9mm, I've found that the Shield is probably a little bit softer shooting than this. Again, that's one man's perception. Some of you guys may differ on that, but it's not, for the size of the gun and the capacity and the weight, it's not a particularly snappy gun. There are worse ones out there in terms of recoil out there on the market that are going to be, you know, 9mm chambered guns, and really it shoots well. I would not carry it because of the shooting characteristics. I think it shoots just fine, and again, practical accuracy is very good. The trigger's good outside of the rust issue, but it breaks cleanly right around 6 pounds, so no issues there on that front. Mine has the upgraded trigger return spring, so hopefully it won't break going forward. We will see though. So cost on these ones is going to be right around, with the night sights, the Gen 2 versions do come in the night sights like we mentioned. Those are going to be right around $549 depending on where you pick one up. Again, we'll drop a link down below where we can, so it's not inexpensive. Certainly compared to like the Glock 43, it's very similar in terms of price point compared to the Shield. The Shield is much more inexpensive. I've had very good results with the Shield. I've had very good results with this pistol. I've had very good results with the Glock 43. They've all been excellent options in my opinion. Which one would I trust more, I guess we can say. At this point, I would lean towards the 43 and the Shield. And that's simply because of the track record of this pistol, not this particular one, but the P365, and just kind of how Sig rolled it out. That kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth personally. I know a lot of folks just love the Sigs. I love this gun. I want this gun to work. I want these guns next year, you know, 2019, I want everyone to be saying, mine ran flawlessly since the upgrades. You know, that would be awesome, because this is a very cool pistol in terms of size, weight, and of course capacity. So I want it to work well. Right now, if I had to bet my life on it, I'd probably lean still with the 43 or the Shield. That's just my opinion. If you guys have any questions that we didn't cover here in the video, by all means post down below in the comment section. You can also post over at my Facebook page. Over there I post deals to guns, gear, stuff like that viewers will send in when you guys find really good deals and high value items. I post them over there, so if you're not following me over there, I recommend you do so. And as always guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. If you guys are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see all of you in the next video.